so excited to have Katie Searfross today on the Arthritis Life podcast. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yay. And can you just give us a quick introduction where you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
Yes. So I'm in the Philly area, Pennsylvania, East Coast, and I am a patient. So I've had rheumatoid arthritis for 2 years now.
Great. Thank you. And I always give, a little extra moment of, what would I call it? Empathy to people who have gotten their diagnosis during the worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And I know that this is not your only condition. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your other chronic health conditions?
Sure. So I've been in chronic pain for almost 18 years now. So my primary diagnosis that I've had the longest is called Reflex Sympathetic Dystrophy, which is abbreviated to RSD. Some people call it complex regional pain syndrome too. I'm just like an RSD girl. That's how I was diagnosed. So that's what I call it. So I've had that for 18 years. And then 7 years ago, got diagnosed with migraine and did not actually know it for a while because I thought it was RSD related, and then was having vestibular migraines actually for a while and didn't know what that was or what was going on with that. And a neurologist was like, nope, you've been living with migraine and vestibular migraine episodes too. And then 2 years ago was introduced to RA. So it was all obviously the pandemic, that part, but again, sometimes I think when you have got like multiple chronic pain issues, certain like things don't stand out as much as like something's wrong because it's like, well, my body always feels off, so that is my little collection of diagnoses.
Yes, you're a collector, but you've already touched on something it's so complex. When you live with more than one condition, and especially more than one pain condition, it's always hard to know, like, is it my fibromyalgia or is it my rheumatoid arthritis? Is it my mixed connective tissue disease or is it my rheumatoid arthritis? In your case, RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Is it that or is it rheumatoid arthritis? And I wonder if you ever gotten the position I've been in sometimes where I've been like, I go flip-flop in between like gaslighting myself, like, oh, it's probably nothing. It's probably nothing really bad. And then you go to the doctor, they're like, actually, whoa, that actually is bad. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. That's exactly what happened with the RA. And I think like for me with the RSD, like what I had been told and also what my experience had been, it's like it's a progressive disease. And so because of that, as over time, it's gotten harder or worse. Like I've always described it as it feels like it's like leveling up on me. And like, I don't know that it's coming. And so sometimes I have bizarre flares that it's like, is this just weird? Is like my body just playing like a bad whack-a-mole game, or is this a flare or is this leveling up? And very rarely is it, oh, it's leveling up to the next thing. But when it's happened, it's always been super scary and super like random symptoms in the mix. And so I didn't do a great job paying attention to even considering that something new was going on. In fact, I think that's like not usually the first thing on my mind is like something else is wrong. It's like I normally default to assuming it's the RSD. And so with the RA, that really confused me because migraine was like, well, that I thought was connected because of how much pain I was in. But the RA was like, no, I feel weak. And that was not an issue with the RSD. And like, I have nerve pain with my RSD, but this was joint pain. But it still didn't even cross my mind that it could be something different. But when it came on really, really abruptly. And I reached out to my team and was like, I don't know what this is. And they were like, it sounds like a fluky flare. And then it's like, okay, again, is it the whack-a-mole? Like, is it like that it will settle or is it leveling up? so I was completely blindsided to be like, oh, it's actually totally something different. So I didn't even know what gaslighting was until like, and that's a whole different part for me, I think, but like until the last 2 years for other stuff. But like, I don't know that I was so much gaslighting myself as much as it was that I just assumed like, I've already got this kind of bear of a disease I'm fighting. It's probably that, and then be
Well,
like,
yeah.
oh, it's something totally different.
Well, and I think that it's so complex because I think even physicians are famously taught in medical school, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. Like you're typically supposed to be
Right.
the simplest, most obvious explanation is quote unquote usually correct, or like to a hammer, everything's a nail. Like to the rheumatologist, everything's musculoskeletal or autoimmune. To the cardiologist, everything's heart related and vascular. To the orthopedist, it's all about bones. It's like each specialist also sees things through their own lens. But I think if you actually looked at every new symptom and considered all the plethora of things it could possibly be, you'd actually just like never do anything because it would be endless. You're like, it could be a pituitary tumor because I'm also sweating, or it could be, it could be like so many, you know what I'm saying? Now with long COVID, or with any of us who've gotten COVID, which I know that we can talk, I just didn't even put that in my list to talk about, but it's like, I've gone to a couple of doctors with a couple of my, symptoms that are again, potentially in the realm of rheumatoid arthritis symptoms, but a little bit different than what I experienced in the 18 years before I got COVID. Is it post, as my physiatrist said, is it post-COVID quote unquote weirdness that they've been seeing the last few years? Right. Or is it? So anyway, sorry, that was a long rant.
Well, no. And like, I think like for me, it took me like 3 years to get diagnosed with the RSD, and it was a horrible journey to get there. And it then took, even after that, it took quite a long time, many more years, to feel really confident with my medical team. And I do. I am so grateful because I know it's not common that like every player on the team, and it really does feel like a team of my medical team. I have full trust in. And so, but it took a long time to get there. So I think that like when it's like, oh, a different specialist is looking for it to be their own thing, like that was a little bit true. But again, it was more that the complexity of the disease was just already so confusing that it's like, honestly, a lot of things could be RSD. And that's something that when I finally got on the right path with like getting treated for it, like I was cautioned as a warning of like being really careful that like I don't assume that if I'm feeling injured somewhere that it's not actually an injury, because I'm a little bit prone to thinking it's probably the RSD, that I could be neglecting something that's actually wrong. You know what I mean? Like another thing that's wrong. And so like that was a big thing, like said to me early on, like to be careful in certain settings, that like I don't just not get certain things checked out just because I assume it's this. And so I'm really grateful for the team I have, because that's actually how, and I don't know if you want to go in this direction or not, but like, that's actually how I got diagnosed as quickly as I did with the RA, because once it was obvious that this was not RSD, it was because I have this all-star team that it was like, okay, how do we figure out what it is? Because it's definitely not us, like it's not in our category of things. So how do we figure that out? So I was really grateful, because that was not my experience getting diagnosed with the other, two pieces of the puzzle here. So
yeah, I think that's actually great to go into. I mean, as long as you're willing to, first of all, I always try to acknowledge people, the emotional labor it takes to go back in time and revisit these like painful diagnoses, memories, is a lot. It's significant. So thank you for being willing to share about it, because I know that people listening are going to feel less alone when you share this, because so many people think, oh, I must have, like, I always blame myself. Like I must not have explained it correctly. That's why I didn't get treated better, that kind of thing. So yeah, and first of all, just, do you have the elevator speech for what RSD is, or like, what are the kind of the most greatest hits symptoms of that, I guess, just to ground what that is, and then go into what your symptoms were and how you got diagnosed?
Sure. So caveat for anybody listening, because I'm this way. So just in case someone listening is this way too. Sometimes I think we hear certain symptoms and are like, wait a minute. I've got that too. So let me be really clear and just say that part of RSD's weirdness, if you will, is that it does present differently for different people. And if caught early, most people have this localized, and it can get to a point where it can go into remission if it's caught and treated fast. There is no cure for it. So there's no like, oh, it's all better. But a lot of people can get to that point quickly if it's caught fast. That was not my experience. Therefore, I have a really different and more dramatic case of it because of how we got there. So I don't want anyone listening thinking, oh my goodness, this is how this goes, because it didn't have to be. And unfortunately, it is part of my story. So when you have RSD impacts your sympathetic nervous system. And while this is not medical or scientific, it is essentially like my sympathetic nervous system is like wired incorrectly. It's like it's constantly misfiring and telling my body that it's in pain, and we need to address this issue. And in the attempt to address it, it's actually inducing pain. So it's like short circuiting. And so my body is in constant pain everywhere. So I am super, super sensitive to light touch. So sometimes I can't wear certain pieces of clothing, or my hair has to be laying on me a certain way, because like the reaction that I get feels like more intensified pain, fiery, like burning, stabbing, shooting pain for me.
Wow.
I can, some people get color changes to the affected area. Some people get temperature changes to the affected area. For me, that happens occasionally, but again, I don't have a localized pain. So my pain spread because it took a long time. It began in one spot in my back, and eventually over time, and it was intermittent, and eventually over time it became consistent and it came all over my body. So there's no area on my body that I don't feel dramatic pain 24/7. So when you can't, because there's no cure for it, it's like, again, depending on when you get diagnosed, it's like, okay, where has it progressed to, and how do we best attack it? And so for me, there's not really attacking because it's already spread everywhere. Now it's like, how do we manage the pain to the point that you can live as comfortably as you can, to live your life as best as you can. So for me, what that looks like is, pacing my life differently, taking different medications, seeing multiple different specialists, and every 3 months, and this is not how it started, but as it's progressed, this is where the need has been, is that I go into the hospital every 3 months for an infusion, a week-long infusion of ketamine and lidocaine. And the combination of those two kind of like suppresses my sympathetic nervous system. It's almost like a great Band-Aid. It's not fixing the problem. It will return again. But for the moment, it's like, it like lets everything just calm a little bit. So I describe that pain like the volume on a TV. And I say, like, if you're watching TV, and someone's talking to you, as long as the TV is a certain level, you can hear the person talk. You might not hear both at the same time, great, but like it's background noise and you can hear the person talking. And for me, it's like, that's like how the pain is that like when after that infusion, it's like, okay, the TV's gotten turned down, that I can hear you and I can know that the pain's there, but eventually that volume is going to turn up louder. And now it's gonna be like, you can talk. I see that you're talking, but I can't hear you because all I can hear is how loud the TV is. And that's like how loud the pain gets. So currently that's our best management tool for that, but there's no oh, this is our one thing to stop it. So that's severe, and not everybody's situation, because a lot of people have it localized. There's different treatments you can do for that, but that's not my experience. But that's also why it gets complicated, to why when new pain comes, it's like, oh, it's probably this, because it's already pretty intense.
Well,
you've had, so
yeah, and you've had to cope for so long with such a high degree of pain that it's almost like a lot of patients with chronic pain end up kind of dissociating from their body to some degree, or distracting themselves. So then they're like, well, I don't want to pay attention to this new pain, right? Because you're like, that's my coping mechanism, is not paying attention to the pain.
That's actually a huge lesson I'm still currently learning. Like even my pain doctor that's been with me the longest, who treats me for the RSD, said to me literally just the other week, he's like, Katie, I need you to try to stay in your body. And it kind of jarred me when he said it. And I was like thinking about it, I'm like, he's right. Like it is so easy and tempting for me when the pain is so bad to just bulldoze past it, because it's like, I can't fix it. And I don't want to pay attention to it. But in doing so, it's like, I'm like grabbing myself naturally, because I'm like thinking about, it's like, oh, I'm not being tender to my body, in the process, and so I'm relearning how to, when to distract, because it's just too much. And like towards the end of an infusion cycle, when we get to there, that is exactly where I am, and then when to be like, okay, this is a lot, but I don't want to look away either, because I want to care for my body.
That's been, and I would not classify the pain I have had typically from RA. I would not classify that as severe. So I don't know what that's like. I've only had severe pain in acute situations like my C-section or my pilonidal cyst surgery or my car accident. But it's more like mild to moderate. But even with mild to moderate pain, technically my disease is actually classified as moderate to severe, but I would classify my pain as less than that, if that makes sense. And my therapist, who is not, he's actually more of an OCD specialist than a pain specialist, interestingly, but OCD, there's a weird parallel, because the same thing with OCD is that you try, like, the more that you try to distract yourself away from those intrusive thoughts or compulsions, the more power they have over you. So you have to learn how to just sit with this uncomfortable thought. Like, if I don't wash my hands again, like I might die. Like, and that's a thought, uncomfortable thought. And the same way with the pain that you have is so uncomfortable, but it's like that which you hold holds you. That's from Tom Robbins. So the more that we hold on to, like, I have to distract myself from this pain. The pain is more powerful, because you're saying, but anyway, I don't know. Sorry, this is about your story, but
no, it's okay. It's okay.
But that's really, and that was going to be one of my questions. I'm just thinking of the audience who might be listening, being like, wait, who treats this? So you mentioned it's a pain doctor.
Yeah. So there's a few people on my team that isn't to the RA, and I promise I'll get there fast, because this is how it connects. But
no, it all connects.
So I see the person that is treating my RSD. I've seen different people. Believe it or not, the actual first person who diagnosed me with the RSD, I didn't even remember this, because I was a teenager. My mom told me after the RA diagnosis, was a rheumatologist. I totally did not realize that at the time.
Oh my gosh.
But I've never seen a rheumatologist for this disease after that. And that was a poor experience. So like, I don't know how or why, but he was a rheumatologist, and that's who diagnosed me. And that was the right diagnosis. But anyway, who actually treats it is like a pain management specialist, but who oversees, he treats different people with different high intense pain disorders. But then I also have a physiatrist on the team who I love, the infusion specialist, who like primarily works with, it's called a pain team, but he's on a pain management team that works with people who receive ketamine. And then I have the neurologist for the migraine, and then obviously the rheumatologist for the RA. But the physiatrist, the pain doctor and the infusion doctor work very closely together. They were the ones that when we finally were like, this is not RSD, what's going on? Something's wrong. The physiatrist, I always say, I felt like she became like the project manager of my pain. It was like all of a sudden she was like, all right, like we need to investigate other, like what else is going on. And so she like masterfully decided that, because I was kind of shocked how horrible I felt all of a sudden with these symptoms that I just didn't know where they were coming from. And she was like, if we time this right, we can probably get you seen when you go into the hospital for your next infusion by a couple of different teams to just see if they can figure out what's going on and probably get some imaging expedited because you're already in the hospital. And so before I went in, I did know that for my infusion, I did know that my lab work came back flagged that like clearly there was something going on. And then they did imaging and I got seen by a few different people, and I got diagnosed when I was in the hospital for this treatment. And I was very fortunate because, like I said, like if someone wasn't like pushing this along, I think it could have been a really long time for me to get seen. So I got diagnosed in the hospital, but not because the RA was that severe, but because I was already in for severe pain. For the RSD. And so someone, like, I sat on my bed and was delivering this news. And I remember thinking, in fact, I remember saying this the very first time in a Room to Thrive group. I remember getting told, like, so, it's rheumatoid arthritis. And I remember thinking, like, why is everyone seemingly breaking this news to me? Because I just had no idea what rheumatoid arthritis was. So I'm like, okay, like, why? Like,
why are you so serious?
That we know. Why are you so serious? And why are you apologizing? Like, what's going on? Like, just not a clue. Not a clue.
Actually, I was elated personally because but in my case, I had no diagnosis other than gastroparesis, which explained my stomach symptoms and weight loss, but not this other symptoms that were related, that were more unintended weight loss is actually a symptom of rheumatoid arthritis. It's just not the one most people think of. So anyway, so I was like, I felt like I'm waiting for them to tell me I have like stomach cancer or something. So when they say you have rheumatoid arthritis, like most people, I just think arthritis. I'm like, that's not a big deal. Like, great, give me the medicine, like fix this. But anyway, so it's not that uncommon because when I tell that, a lot of people say, wow, because they're like, okay, but back to your story, you were like, everyone's like really serious about it. They're like, okay. Yeah. And you're like, serious. Okay.
And I'm like, I'm like, okay. And I just didn't respond. Like in hindsight, like when it finally caught up to me what was going on, I wished for that moment all over again to have had a chance to ask questions and emotionally react, because by the time I had questions and was emotionally reacting, all of that had gone away because everyone else had moved on. Because at the time I'm like, okay, so they moved on. And I remember telling like my favorite nurse, like who came in later to like check on me, I was like, so like someone just came in and gave me this diagnosis. And she was like, oh, Katie. And this reaction, I'm like, why? What is going on? Like, what is it? And I'm like, yeah, still not tracking. So then my mom like had this like reaction and I'm like, what? And so it finally took until like someone paused and explained to me what it was. Cause I just thought, I didn't realize arthritis had so many different branches and so many different, like what it means. And I had no clue. I was so naive. And so
you're not alone. Yeah.
When it was like, okay, this is what's going on. This is why people are saying it this way. This is why people who know me and care about me and know I'm already carrying a lot of pain are reacting this way.
It's like, okay, you have one kind of, oh, sorry. I did not mean.
No, it's okay. It's like all catching up to me. And it was like, okay. What I didn't expect is to walk out of the hospital with a new pain disorder. Like that is like, you know what I mean? Like I was like ready for them to be like, something deficiency and here's a pill. Like I just was not tracking with, it wasn't even on my radar that I could be walking out with a new doctor. That was probably the most overwhelming. Like we're adding yet another person to the team, and a new diagnosis that was not just like, hey, do these 3 things and you're set.
Yeah. Another very complex, a huge spectrum of possible severity, a possible response to medications. It's anything but straightforward, right? It'd be like one thing to be like, you have iron deficiency anemia and that explains your fatigue. We're going to give you iron and you're going to feel better. Like, great. I totally, and
Yes.
a lot of people I've talked to, including myself, if that makes sense, thought about this, feel kind of like I'm used to, it's like the devil, like I already got used to this one thing, like the RSD. Now you're telling me to get used to and the migraine. At this point, you already knew you had vestibular migraine. Now you're like, it's like fatiguing to be like, now I have to learn this new thing.
Yes. And the migraine, and again, not to minimize, because so many people suffer so much worse with migraine than I feel I do. But I was living for a while assuming that was a side effect of the RSD. So primarily I was so focused on the RSD. And at this point now, I have people who can explain things to me, or I've been living with it long enough. So to have something totally new, and then to have my doctors be like, I mean, we're going to work with your rheumatologist, but you need a rheumatologist, like maybe you want to cry. Cause I was like, can't you just do it? Like, because now we're going to explain to the rheumatologist about the RSD. And I'm like, when did I become complex? Like, like I don't want to be complicated. I want to just be like, this is what we treat. I don't know. I just was grasping to any sort of illusion I think I had that I could still be normal. And I need a new word for that, because like I don't mean to imply that I'm not normal, but I mean like it was like I was constantly living this like double life or something of like chronic illness and my life as though I don't have illness. And it's like that's just that any leftover attempt of that was shattered when the RA came in, because it was like, okay, I can no longer hold all of it. And honestly, I couldn't have said this at the time, but honestly, probably for the better, because this is forcing me now to like come to grips with like the and of like, yes, this is true. And this is true. And not try to be like, okay, now I'm going to put this hat on and I'm going to be going to doctor appointments. And okay, now I'm putting this hat on and I'm professional. Like, it's like, no, it's just both. It just is both, and it can't be separated. It's unfair to me if it's separated, like I'm a whole person, and so it already shattered some things for me that honestly like hurt really bad at the time, but it was for the better.
Wow.
But including I settled for a doctor, a rheumatologist who my team was not a fan of. And I was like, it'll be fine. And it was not fine. It was not fine at all. And they were right. But in my mind, it was like I was unwilling to start all over again with the process of finding a rheumatologist I liked. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I did this with the RSD. Like, I want to it'll be fine. You guys are the primaries. God. And it's like, nope. Like, we need to love this person, whoever it is. Like, we need to, like, they need to be willing to work on a team. And so it took time, to get, okay, like over that, but when I finally got to the doctor, the rheumatologist that I see now that I really like, I remember thinking, I need a welcome binder of like, hi, you've just been diagnosed with the RA, and here is your literature, and here is how you're going to live and how you're going to function, how you're going to do anything. And it's like, no, that's not here. Okay. And, oh, these appointments are maybe 20 minutes. Like, okay, also not used to that. Like, like not like I'm just so used to living with something different where the protocol is so different, where it's like appointments are so long. And this is like, wait, what's going on? And it's like, it was a whole new world. I kept saying, I know how to be a chronic illness patient. I know how to be a patient. I've been doing that for a long time. I do not know how to be an RA patient. Like, and someone needs to teach me. Like,
and then you found Room to Thrive and everything's better now. No, just kidding.
Okay. But honestly, yeah. Like, because I like felt like I was just like, I felt like I was losing everything. Like, I felt like I was losing my life, and I fought so hard to live my life with pain. And it was like, everything's slipping through my fingers again. And I don't know what to do. And like, we can't solve this in 20 minutes. And I'm just so confused. And like, everything I was reading on the internet felt so like, I'm like, this is not helpful. Like, I need someone to explain what's on the internet and explain, like, because if someone came to me and said, I just got diagnosed with RSD, I would be like, stay off the internet. Like, this is what you need. Like, read this, listen to that. Like, because I know what sounds true and right, but also hopeful, you know what I mean? And also like, and I don't mean hopeful, like, unrealistic. I mean, like, you can live your life like with this too. And I needed someone to tell me, this sucks. This is terrible. You're going to be able to live your life. Like, I needed that so bad. And so I was searching. I was like, okay, like, the internet's not helpful. Like, I need to listen to someone. So I just started randomly looking up podcasts to just try to see, like, could I find anyone with like, who could just teach me. And how I found you actually was your podcast first. And I like binge listened to like several podcasts because I was just like, I need someone to explain this. And like, that's how it started for me, because I was like, and then it was like, oh wait, I could actually join a group that could like, oh my gosh, like, it was exactly what I needed at the time, because I was so, it's like you gave me my binder. Do you know what I mean? Like, I needed that, like, so you've just been diagnosed with RA, like, and like,
yes.
Oh, okay, here it is, and, oh gosh, like that was a turning point for me in like acceptance, I think, and then knowing how to advocate, but acceptance, I think too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, and that's wonderful to hear. And it's such a full circle moment. I'm like feeling very surreal right now that like, now you're on the podcast.
Yeah, I
like,
know. Crazy.
I know. Might be listening to this in your statement. So I'm like, this is like Inception. Like, and then that person will join and then they'll come on the podcast.
Right. I know. Well, when you said that, I was like, that was like touching to me, because I thought like, that's literally how I felt. Like, that to me, like, now my algorithm, like now I know what to look for, but like, and RSD online community is not a very hopeful place. And it's probably one of those things where like, if I want to see change, I need to be part of it, but like, I just don't have capacity for that. And so like, I didn't even pause to consider that the online community for RA could be different, or chronic illness community, like broaden it and just be like chronic pain or chronic illness could be different. And so I was like, oh. And so now I feel like I know what to look for if I'm continuing to look for, like, has anyone ever tried this medication? Like, I know how to like search that on social media. Like, I know how to figure that at the time I didn't. And so like, now my algorithm leads me to those things. But at the time it was like, I don't know, a podcast. And so I was like, oh, this is a wealth of information. So anyway, it was full circle for me too, to be like, oh, and now like, this is what got me on the right track, and thankful to.
Well, and that's,
talk to you.
I mean, one of my motivations for creating Room to Thrive, I actually initially called it the Rheumatoid Arthritis Roadmap. Those of you listening to older episodes will hear like old ads for Rheumatoid Arthritis Roadmap, because I baked them into the episodes, not knowing that about dynamic ad insertion. Anyway, but that I call it the roadmap because that's what I recognize people need. And now I kind of call the self-paced course, the Room to Thrive course is like the roadmap, and then the group is that like social support, and that a little bit of, I'm saying this in a positive way, hand holding, because we need hand holding. Like, this is too much for most people to go through on their own. We need someone to say like that. And you said or I wrote down realistic hope as you were talking. I don't think you actually said those words, but like, that's, you said hope that was not like, sugar coated or toxic positivity and stuff. And that's really what I tried to figure out. How can I give people hope while also acknowledging, like you said, like they're going to have days that suck. You're going to have, it's like, it's almost an elephant in the room sometimes. Like everyone wants to give people hope by saying, don't worry, we have all these tools for pain and tools for fatigue. And like, I will teach you all of the evidence-based tools for pain and fatigue. But I also will acknowledge that sometimes you are going to use every single tool in your toolbox and you will still have pain and fatigue. Like, but it's like, that's so many health providers are like, we don't want to say that, like, don't tell that, because it feels like you're going to be giving people less hope. But it's like, okay, but then can we say, no, this is reality, right? And then can we say, can we find moments of joy even in the moments when you still have pain?
Oh, I just need you now, granted, this is like deeply embedded into my story, which is why this probably resonates so much with me. But that, like, hey, there's going to be days where you do everything you possibly can. You've done everything right. You've done everything. You've tried all the things and it's like, nope, still bad. Frees me, because when I first was taught how to manage pain, not RA, how to manage pain, it was in what I now know was a very toxic environment, and was lots of gaslighting. I didn't even know what medical gaslighting was until Room to Thrive. Like all these, but like I hadn't heard of those terms. I hadn't heard of like, so like, or toxic positivity. And so in that environment where I was first learning how to manage pain, and I was a teenager, so I was super impressionable, like where I learned how to manage pain, I was told that this was dependent on how much I do. And I was also promised a cure, which I should never have been promised, because that's not even a thing. But my point is that it was dependent on, if I try hard enough, this will take place. And so when I got out of that environment and into a new environment, what I was taught there, I was in like a pain clinic, and what I was taught there was, so you're not going to get a cure, but we're going to do everything we can to teach you how to manage pain safely and live your life. And I sobbed, because it was like, it freed me to know that I can try as hard as I want, and I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, because then it wasn't my fault anymore. You know what I mean? And so to be in environments where it's like, and some days it just sucks. Like there's this weird exhale, because I can release myself from trying. But maybe if I exercise a little bit more, maybe if I just rest and be free in listening to your body and saying that's what your body needs right now. And so that's only ever validating to me when people say that. I know for other people, they probably be like, but just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But it's like, that's how I lived for so long. And I felt burdened and trapped by that, and that it was my fault.
And I use that same word, burden. It's an unburdening feeling to say that, I think some things are simply out of our control, and you control everything that you spend your time wisely, right? Saying, you mentioned sorry, I'm starting 6 different thoughts, but you mentioned this kind of haunting, or I call it a haunting of what if maybe if you did exercise more, your pain would be less, but you can't live your life. You have to, at least for me, to achieve some sense of true connection to the world as it is and joy and thriving. I can't let myself get wrapped up in that, right? I can just say, all right, maybe my life would be better if I ate more broccoli, but I'm just going to keep going, because I maybe only have 40 years left on earth. I don't want to spend the whole time berating myself for not being a perfect patient. Cause the goal, and this is something I've been working on, I have a half-baked idea for an Instagram reel on this, but it's like the goal of symptom control isn't controlling symptoms. It's being able to live your life, right? You control symptoms so that you can live your life. But if you think that if your whole life becomes about controlling your symptoms perfectly, then it's like the snake eating its tail, right? It's like, what's the point? The point of doing lifestyle interventions to again improve your symptoms is so you can have a better quality of life. Well, what if you could have a better quality of life without your symptoms being perfectly controlled? That's just another way to achieve, I don't know. Does that resonate at all? Sorry.
No, it does, because that's kind of how I feel with my medical team. Like, listen, I'm not saying like that, like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I don't hope for a cure. Of course I hope for a cure. But if I like walk around every day being like, maybe if I do this formula exactly right, like, oh my word, like that is like enslaving me to a life I don't want to live. Like, and so like, it's like, no. I'm going to do what I can. And I'm going to need you guys, medical team, like, to tell me when there's something better I could be trying or doing. Like, you come to the table with that. Like, I'm going to keep living, because like your goal is to help me go live my life. Like, and they tell me that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, of like, like, guys, I have this upcoming thing for work. I really want to do it, but I'm probably going to destroy my body in the process. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's talk about it. Like, what, like, like, like this will do my heart good. Like, I need to do it. Like, okay. Like, so it's not negotiable, but it's like, what, is there anything else we can do to try to make me comfortable or help me in the come down from it? You know what I mean? And if not, okay, well, we're not going to like shake our fingers and be like, probably shouldn't have done that. Like, because like, I can't live like that. I can't.
Right.
Like, and in the meantime, I hope that you guys are keeping up to date with research and stuff on like, oh, what if we tried this? I mean, I got more relief in my infusions when we added lidocaine. Like, you know what I mean? We hadn't always been doing that. So it's like when, like, there's always these like tweaks and adjustments to make and always hope for better for me. Like, but it's like to sit there and go like, what else could I maybe do? Like, I did too much of that in the beginning, and I don't want to keep living that way,
Yeah. And I
mean, like living.
Yeah. I think that, your previous, like 16 years before your RA diagnosis, maybe prepared you a little bit to be able to, accept a little bit of the role of randomness. Right.
Yes.
But I think with RA, there is this so I know a little bit about, what I was trained in OT school as complex regional pain syndrome, or now reflex sympathetic dystrophy, RSD. I know a little bit about that. And it is the thing that I think is a little different from RA to that is that with RA, there's this kind of carrot dangling in front of you of remission. Like there is a possibility of remission where meaning no symptoms, or low symptoms. Whereas with your other conditions, it's more like there maybe is not this. So it's not a cure, but it's like you can get on medicated remission, or in very rare cases, people do get on unmedicated remission. So I think that does complicate things in the beginning, because you'll get these experiences of so-and-so went on Humira, or like in my case, Enbrel, and went into medicated remission for 6 years. And I just literally lived like a very, very quote unquote normal 20 something life. I was swing dancing 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. I was working full time, all this stuff. And there's that possibility, but there's also the possibility that it could get progressively worse and all the medicines could fail you,
Well, okay. But see that, like, I know I shared with you before, like, I thought that I wasn't going to talk in Room to Thrive, which is like a big joke, of course, now, but what I meant by that was not that I didn't want to share, but was more that like, I think I could just sit and listen to everybody's stories and walk away being like, wow, that was so good. Like, and like, I still feel that way, because especially being like newer to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, teach me everything you know. But I remember the first time I heard someone say, it could have been you, but somebody was sharing in their story, like, oh yeah, and then like this medicine no longer worked for me, and I was like, wait, what? Like this happens?
Yeah.
This thing? Like I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, and this is the kind of stuff that it's like, teach me. Like, I want to know from a human who I ideally can like learn more from and gain a relationship with, like, versus random scary article on the internet, because I know that you could do the same thing for RSD and see 100 scary articles on the internet. Like, don't do that. Like, find the safe spot. You know what I mean? So, but that was brand new information to me too. And so anything like all the autoimmune, anything, I'm like, oh, I don't understand anything in this land over here. Like, everyone's going to need to teach me how to, like, what does this mean? What does this look like? And I genuinely got a crash course in it when I, like, made this the, like, okay, this is where I'm gaining, this is where I'm learning, this is where I'm going to get information. And I'm not trying to say in place of my medical team or my doctor at all. What I mean is that it was like, I'm not researching, I'm just focusing on this. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
totally. I think
was so helpful.
I just, it's like on a very, very, very basic level, like when I've talked to different medical providers, because, I go to the rheumatology conferences, which are multidisciplinary. So we've got nurses, nurse practitioners, different rheumatologists, different other related doctors. We have, OTs, PTs. And I'm like, guys, like, does not matter how amazing the rheumatologist is, 20 minutes every 3 months. What do you think the patient's going to do? Like, just be realistic for 1 second. Like, do you think that they're not going to go home and immediately look up on the internet if you only give, like, it just is not. I think there's little, and they're like, well, we don't want patients to, like, just Google. Okay, well then give them more than, like, you either need to give them more than 20 minutes or not fault them for Googling, because you cannot expect someone to get such a complex condition and give them, like, no education and support. Like, it's like, I think that they're not looking at through the lens of the patient's real lived experience,
No, I'm sure. But, like, I've had to start, and for the record, I think my rheumatologist is great. But like, I've had to start saying to my rheumatologist, like, stop every once in a while and be like, I am still learning this. Like, I'm not, like, because sometimes they'll say something as if I know it. And I'm like, all of a sudden I'm thinking, like, oh my gosh, you're probably talking to who knows how many patients a day. And there's no way you're remembering who knows what thus far. You know what I mean? So, like, how would I know that? We've never talked about that before. Like, oh, okay. So I'll have to say something like, I'm still learning this, like, or I don't know that this is a thing. Or, like, I reached out over, like a portal, which I've done before for other doctors, but, like, I didn't even think, I was, like, desperate, and I was like, like, let me just see if he'll answer. He answered him, like, so fast and so detailed. And I was, like, laughing, thinking to myself, oh, right. Okay. So this is how you keep up with everybody, because it's only 20-minute appointment. So it's fine. I can email you. Like, whereas my other doctors, it's like maybe 3 to 5 business weeks. Do I hear back? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. Like, but I didn't know. Like, now I know, and so I'm starting to, or the other day, when I was thrown out to the group, like, hey, like, this is my situation. Like, I don't know. I've not done this before. Can anyone tell me, does fatigue and brain fog, do they go hand in hand? Like, stuff like that. It's like, now knowing, like, okay, I don't need to wait to ask the doctor. I can ask I can poll the audience and say, what's the idea here? So at least I can go in the right direction of then saying to the doctor, I think I'm experiencing this.
Yep.
How can I get help? Versus, like, what do you think it is? You know what I mean? Because there's a community now to ask.
Yes. Yeah. And you're so a lot of people have asked me, like, okay, wait, you have this initial 12-week Room to Thrive, support group option. And then we also have an alumni group that I don't, like, have on the same page. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But, like, I don't have it on the same part of the website because it might confuse people, that you have to do the initial group, kind of get that foundational knowledge. And then if you want to keep having the support group meetings every week, you join we call it the graduates, and it's really great.
Yeah. If I can make a plug though for that though, because, like, I was someone, and I said this in our initial group, like, as a point of feedback, like, for me, like, taking the plunge to join a group is scary, in my opinion, or could be scary. But some of the things that were immediately calming to me is that, like, having to pay into it gave me this immediate sense of relief that like, it wasn't just going to be anyone and everyone and maybe I'll show up, maybe I won't, like, and that's not a pressure thing to show up every time. I just mean like, there was this like natural, like accountability of like what this group's going to be. The fact that you control the size of the group, like that was super helpful for me. The fact that you were going to like, be a, what am I trying to say? Like a moderator for the group, like, you know what I mean? And guide the group, like was such a comfort to me. Cause then it was like, okay, because I'm a kind of person, personality wise, like if no one is sharing in any kind of group, I will naturally step up to lead. And it's like, I don't want to lead. I can't lead. I don't have no idea what I'm talking about. I need to know that someone else is like, I'm holding it. I've got it. Like, you know what I mean? And so that was like so comforting to me. And then by the end of it, like knowing that, oh, there's this graduates group, but everyone in that group has to have gone through the material, was like, oh, great. Now we're all speaking the same language. So now it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've been 2 weeks or 2 decades more, you know, whatever, like into your journey, we all have the same foundational language because we just did this together, even if we didn't actually go in, if we weren't in a cohort together,
right,
or whatever,
right.
like we all have the same material. That feels like, oh, great. Now we can have a conversation knowing those things are still true. Like it would, I think, feel different if you could just bypass that and just go right to that group. Like, I think that's super important that you have it structured that way. And I would just encourage anyone that's like, I'd like to get to that part. Like, no. Like it's really good to have, to all be on. It's like you all took the same class. Like it's not I know it's not a class, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like we all have the same language.
Yeah, it's like you've taken it really is like, I think the orientation course, like Room to Thrive is like, get grounded, understand the basics. And I do a lot of like myth busting, you know, like here's the deal with diet and nutrition. Like this is what the latest evidence says. And like, I'm going to help you make sense. Like, why is it so overwhelming and confusing? Here's some reasons why. Like, you're not doing it wrong. It's just confusing. And like the data on like sleep and exercise are a lot more uniform. And like, this is, you know, some additional things. But the thing that really people end up saying, like they come to the course, like wanting like the tool, the pain the pain relief and the, you know, basically understanding their condition better, understanding how to advocate. But the sections that are on, the sections that are on relationships and social support, inner world, coping, acceptance, and then on values, like connecting to your values, what values do you have and what do you value in the world? Is it giving back? Is it nature and environmentalism? Is it this or, you know, and it's interesting. I just had the first person who said like, they really were like, that was my favorite part. And I was really happy to hear that anyway, because, about a lot of times people are surprised that the relationship section and the social, you know, it's really, honestly, we need social skills training for how to be in the social world as someone with a chronic illness, because we're going to get these weird comments and friendship complexities. And I know that you have been lovely and open enough to share that in the group at times of, you know, a lot of people struggle to get friends and family, or quote unquote, I'm struggling to get people to believe me or get people to understand. Well, I'm saying quote unquote, because I don't like to see it that way, because it's not, you can't make someone understand anything. You can just provide them information and they have to decide whether they're going to understand it or not, you know. But do you want to, sorry, that was a lot, but do you want to share a little about that?
Yeah, I think that like, just like I like, what's so bizarre is that so like 18 years ago, right? Like pain started and I did this once before. And so like socially, and I was like in a totally different social dynamic at that point, but like I would say of my friends, not my family, my friends, like most of them have only known me with pain. But they all know me with like, I'm basically coming at you, like educating you, like, so just so you know, this is what's going on. This is why I can and can't do certain things and whatever. And they're not like, I would say overly distracted by my pain, but they understand because I can calmly educate you. If my friends who were my friends before I had the RSC, like they remember how just deer in the headlights I was until I got to this point, and so now going through this with even friends who've known me with pain, but don't know me with RA, like, are like, I don't understand. You've been living with pain the whole time. Like, what's the problem? And not in a, they're not being unkind. Like they just like, they literally don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, but you're always in pain. It's like, right. But I don't understand either. Like I'm learning. I'm not at the point yet. I always say like, there's this weird fantasy I have in my brain of like, I wish I could just like hide in a closet, figure this all out, come out and be like, okay, here's the plan. Here's
Oh
what's
my
happening.
God. Yeah.
Here's what's this. Like, don't look at me until I've figured this out. I'm going to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? And then I'm going to explain it. I'm going to educate you and I'm going to explain. And it's no big deal. And it's like, like it's the most awkward thing now for me to do this essentially all over again, but as a professional and as a friend and as an established, to be like, here, watch me like, be like clunky as I figure out how to like walk this way now, like in my relationships, in my, professional life, in my, because I'm going to make so many mistakes and I'm going to overdo it and I'm going to do that. And you're going to have to watch that. And on the flip, it's like, they're like, I don't even know what to ask you. I don't even know, like, do you want to talk about it? Like, I don't even know what's going on because they don't understand either because I'm not educating. And so it's been really fascinating to me to see like how often I fall short on words of what to say, but I'm like, I'm lonely. I need help. I feel scared. I'm overwhelmed. But if I open my mouth, am I just going to be sharing things that are too sad to hear? Like, how are my friends going to respond? Am I going to lose all my friends? Like all of these things like come rushing to my brain. And, what's going to happen if like, I can't socially like keep up anymore, even the way I was living, because I haven't figured this part out yet. Like I haven't figured out how to manage my energy different. And I haven't figured out, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and to see who's keeping up with that and who's like, can't even look at me is really painful. And that is something that I think has been so helpful in this group, because I vulnerably said that a couple months ago. I think actually one of the first times in like the graduates group, and like not without a gentle tone, like someone did say like, no, that's a thing. like almost like you know what, like in some ways you're better off sharing some of these pieces here, you know what I mean? And not even trying here. And it wasn't without being gentle about it, but it was like, okay, yeah, like some of this is just too tricky to explain. And so I'm still navigating, I think, that socially, but family wise, like my family has been very supportive. What's been really, really hard for me is that I currently can't live independently, and I was living independently. And so that was like kind of heartbreaking for me, because I'm like, okay, I have still not gotten this under control enough to be able to feel confident about how to do certain things. Like I just need a lot of help right now. And so I have a very
that's
supportive family.
That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. I haven't gotten this under control. Do you see, you know what I mean?
I do see that. Yeah. I think that's a lot of unlearning and relearning I'm still working on right now.
Sorry, I don't mean to be like,
but
no,
it's okay.
Pointing that out to be like, the language we use is so important, right? Because I think, and you obviously strike me as like, shouldn't say obviously, you strike me as like an intellectual person, right? And I think intellectual people have a really hard time with chronic illness a lot of times, because we're used to like solving the problem, or like what my therapist would say, like, you're a really good problem solver, which is great for solvable problems. Not all of your problems are solvable.
Yeah.
And it's,
but that
fuck, sorry.
Yeah. No, yes. No. Yeah. No, you're right. It is. And I think like, but like you just pointing that out right now, like that falls in the category to me of things that I never even paused to consider until I joined this community. And it's been the most helpful. And sometimes like extremely eye-opening to be like, oh, you know, and sometimes it's just good language for me. And like, sometimes of like, oh, this is what I'm doing, or this is why, or where did that come from? You know what? I think I was taught that, or whatever that, you know, happens in my brain in those like 30 seconds when I hear it. But it also is like, yeah, but the thing is that I think that I so badly, again, want that binder that says like, hey, when you reach month, whatever, when you reach year this, like, then you will plateau and you'll be fine. And no one can give that to me because it doesn't exist, but that's what I want. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like, and
my
so it's
God.
like,
Yeah.
someone
Yep.
tell me that, like, listen, you know, like, and I don't want to be told, well, you never know what the future, stop it. Like, I don't want to be told someday that, like, just like, I've had to let dreams that I have for my life be laid down for a while. And for a while I thought they were like dead. And then I was like, no, they can't be dead. Like, but they definitely are laid down, you know, because like right now I can't chase after them. And that's not to say that I can't pick them up along the way or have new dreams. Like, it's just that it's been like, that's been really hard and a new layer of grief for me, because I am so much more limited than I have been before. And I'm learning how to live this way, and I'm learning to be gentle with myself, and I'm not good at it yet. I'm not, like, being gentle with myself is
Sorry.
very, very
That's so
hard.
true. But even just the idea of saying I'm not good at being gentle is like a ungentle thought towards yourself.
No, but I
No, you're being,
actually stand by, I stand by
yeah,
that one though,
yeah.
because like what I mean is that like it is tempting to me to go back to this roots of where my pain management skills were initially taught to me, of like, bulldoze past it. Don't trust your body. Don't, like, your body's just going to constantly be in pain. Just keep moving. Like, and like, I'm like, yes, we'll do it. Like, got it, you know? And now it's like, be gentle, be gentle, be gentle. Like, and like,
Yeah, I see
to
what you're
like,
saying.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. And like, when I say I'm not good at it yet, I'm not actually being up on myself. I'm acknowledging like, no, I've got work to do to
Yeah.
be gentle with myself. And that's not like a work harder at being gentle. It's like, no, it's like surrender what can't, you're not in control of, and learn, like, again, going back to what my doctor said about like staying in your body, like, learn to like stay present in your body and not hate it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hate the
Yeah.
disease, not the body. And like, it's like, I didn't even think I was hating my body, but it's like, oh yeah, no, I do, you know, and I don't think it, but like, I ignore it a lot, or I bulldoze
Huh.
past things a lot. And again, I think I was taught that, and I'm not trying to, um, you know, push ownership on any one person. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that I was taught some of these crucial tools that if I had in the beginning, I think that I'd be a little bit more grounded in understanding why that's so important, versus like thinking it's like being delicate or something. And it's
Well,
like, no, it's like so important, I think.
yeah. I mean, so like I was literally thinking as you were saying this, and then you just led me perfectly to it, which is the nature of chronic pain that's a result of a misfiring in your nervous system. That's what RSD is. RA is chronic pain that is from an actual ongoing, real, quote unquote, disease process. Do you know what I mean? So you're having two different kinds of root causes of the pain. And one of them, some of the appropriate tools for like I'm having brain fog with the phrase central sensitization, which is the process of like where a smaller stimulus evokes a too big response of pain, right? Is you do have to bulldoze and push your body to recognize that, oh, actually that this is, my brain is misfiring right now, and that's not really a threat. Versus the RA, you actually do have to listen to your body. So those are like two different, like a patient that just has RA is going to be taught strategy X, and somebody who just has RSD is going to be taught strategy Y. And you are in the middle here having to do, they're like opposite. Do you know what I'm saying? Like one of them's like, eat more fruit. And the other one's like, don't eat fruit. Like these, you're in one body that has to reconcile these different, different styles of managing. I mean, I would be extremely confused in your case. So it's not, it's not simple. And I think, if I've had that same thing too, when friends are like, but didn't you already figure this out? Sorry, going back to what you said earlier, you already figured out pain. You're already living in pain. I'm like, right, but this is a new kind of pain. Like,
and no one's being unkind. It's just that like, I can just tell it's confusing. Like, it's like there's not enough of a vocabulary to explain the difference that I'm familiar enough with and they're familiar enough with. And so it's just like, but you were in pain 16 years ago, 18 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 minutes ago. Like, like, and it's getting worse, but it's always been getting worse. Like, no, it's new pain. You know what I mean? Like if you don't know what living in pain was like, period, like that's confusing. So like I, in a lot of respects, I have a lot of grace for that, but it's hard and it's tender to walk through going like, I'm learning how much of a control freak I didn't even realize I was by like how much I think I shield myself from fear of disappointment, that it's like, here's all the things that you can say. Here's all the things you can do. Here's all the things so that I don't feel hurt or abandoned. You know what I mean, in the process. And it's like, I got none of that. And you're on your own. And like, can you come up with that on your own? I don't know. Maybe. And some are, and so many are, I think, trying, and it's just no one, like, I said to a really good friend the other day, like, she's like, I don't know what to do, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm like, neither do I, you know what I mean? Like, and neither am I, and I appreciate it. Like, but it's like, I don't want to lose myself in the process. But right now it's like, it's much easier to talk about you than it is about me, because if we talk about me, it's like, I don't have anything good to say at the moment. And it's not because it's not because there's nothing else to my life, but at the exact moment, this is the biggest thing going on in my life, and so and work is like not always an easy topic to talk about. So it's like, if I'm using all of my leftover energy after work on relationships, it's like, well, then that's where, like, then there's nothing else to talk about, because now I'm talking about you and your, you know what I mean? Like, I've got nothing else to pull from. And that's what I mean by clunky. It's like, I'm just like learning how to do this and wishing it would be faster, wishing that the whole thing would be faster, to get to a point of feeling like, oh, okay, but I can look back and say, gosh, I've learned so much in the last 2 years that I'm confident that, like, I'll keep learning, but and I have a personal point of reference of like, wait, I literally did this before when I was diagnosed with the RSD. You know what I mean? Like, and so I know I eventually got to a point where I wasn't like floundering, you know what I mean? But it's like, I still feel like I'm not cruising, and so.
Yeah. It's like, I am a work in progress is one of my little self-compassionate mantras I repeat to myself, like, cause I feel the same pressure as you, or not even pressure from the outside, pressure internally to figure things out, to just, and I've shared this in the group before, but a lot of times I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're the person who, like, quote unquote, wrote the book about this or created the course, like Rheum to Thrive. And you tell people every month you're talking about this. Why can't you just freaking do it? Like, you can't do it yourself, but you're telling other people to do it. Like, are you a hypocrite? Like, we have all these, like, I like to imagine like the inner coach, and I teach this in the Rheum to Thrive part on like coping skills. There's the inner coach and the inner critic, right? So the shoulder angels, like the inner shoulder angel who's like, good job, you can do it. And the inner critic, which is like, you suck, and the shoulder angel has to just sometimes say, like, you're a work in progress. Like, no, you're not complete. You're not perfect, but, like, sorry, this, when you said the word floundering, that really hit with me because I felt that way many times too. Like, you
Mhm.
know, and who wouldn't be floundering? It's like, is there someone out there who like has a gold star for like coping the best? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. But if I can encourage you like that, when you feel that way and you admit it publicly, like you, like, again, free those people with the narrative of like needing to arrive, right? Like
yeah,
it's like I need someone ahead of me, just like I need someone ahead of me saying like you can do everything you can and you're still gonna have these days. It's like I also need someone to be like, yeah, I've been doing this for X amount of years and I still struggle
yeah,
with X. Like, oh my gosh, okay, thank you. Like it's freeing because it's like there's no, and you have arrived and now you've mastered already. Like, no, this is life, you know? And
and
so when
yes,
people pretend that they have arrived, it's so off-putting to me. Like I look for
yeah,
people who are real people. Like I I hope that you can hold hope. I hope that you can, help, you know, look back and share lessons learned that like, okay, I learned this the hard way, but I also hope that people ahead of me can be like, no, like yet again, I'm still making this, I'm still forgetting this, or I'm still choosing
yeah.
this or whatever, like, thanks for being human. Thanks for showing your humanity.
That has been one of the most surprising things to me personally about running the groups and being just like a public-ish figure in the
Yeah.
niche of arthritis, right?
Hmm.
And I definitely, like, if you asked me in 2019 when I first started Arthritis Life, and then 2020 when I started the groups and the programs, I was like, I need to wait. I need to wait until I figured everything out, and then I'm going to do it. Like, I'm
Hmm.
going to wait till I can write the manual. I'm going to,
Yeah.
the manual that actually, like you said, has an endpoint that says you're done. Like, you figured
Hmm.
it out. And I
Yeah.
was like, people don't want they don't
No.
want the truth. But again, but actually, I didn't accept the truth fully, even until I started really, till I, through lots of therapy and through just doing my own internal work and research and realizing, wait, what if that the false premise is that we have to figure it out?
Mhm.
It being like perfect symptom control, perfect health. Like, there's never been a time in human history, like anthropologically speaking, historically, that humans have like, it's been the norm to just totally be healthy all the time. There's no culture where people, like, this disease is part of life. It's just the nature of things, right? Like, people die in childbirth. Like, yes, we've made advances, but like, we're nowhere near, like, as long as we still are in a state of imperfect knowledge of the human body and how to cure illnesses, like, there's going to be shitty days. There's going to be people who did all the right treatments. And then, I just was reading that, I mentioned this on another podcast, but I was reading the memoir Crying in H Mart, and the girls, spoiler alert if you're going to read it, but it says that a bunch of places that her mom dies and her dad doesn't at the point I'm reading. And it's like, her mom took perfect care of her health, was really, really active. And, her dad like did a bunch of drugs, and not to say that people who do drugs should die, but like, like, logically you're like, one person
Right.
took care of their body and one person didn't. And then the one that took care of their body died, and the other one didn't. And
Mhm.
like, that's just how life is. Like,
Mhm.
and the more we try to run away from that, um, it's again that what which you hold holds you. No, well, it's threatening to people, and that's how it relates to the
Yeah.
social life, family and friends. People don't want that. They think it's such a cognitive dissonance to have to face the fact that there's so much randomness in health, that people would rather say, no, Katie's just not doing it right. Like, there must be something more. Like, there must be something she could be doing. Like, rather than saying, shit, like, this could happen to anyone. Like, Katie's trying her best and like going to the best doctors and has a great team, and they are at a point where this is the best they can do.
And what I wish, like, Cheryl, like, for myself, and I'm truly not trying to be hard on myself, but like I wish that I could embrace that and believe that personally too. Like that gentle, like that, like I am doing everything I can. Like the doctors, like I trust these doctors, like this is like, if I could just pour gentleness over myself and hold it and believe it and keep it, like I would, like, because sometimes I think that my mind is just very clever in how it plays tricks on me still to believe that, like, okay, I'm going to posture myself and present myself this way, but in my brain, I'm not relaxing into that and being gentle. Like, and I'm not trying to be hard on myself. I'm just saying it's like that perspective of like, like letting like people see your humanity and also being like, whoa, like that could be me or that could be that, you know what I mean? Like, this is like, and look at that. Like, I never assume that's what people think when they see me. And what's so hypocritical is that's probably what I would think if I was looking at someone who was suffering. Like, but like for me, it's like, oh, surely, like, it's like, it's that like, oh, I guess I haven't learned that yet. I'm still working on that. Like, I'm still working to just,
Yeah. So are you saying you're more gentle with others than yourself? Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Just
Goodness,
to make
yes.
sure.
Goodness, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that like, if like I have bought in to the fact that I want gentle for myself.
Yeah.
I want to be gentle towards myself. What I'm saying is I have yet to figure out how to have gentleness up close and keep it. Like, I'm like, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hot
it's
potato.
just like, it's very like, I can keep it for a second, but like, it's not natural for me. You know what I mean? Like, so like, I want that for myself though. Like, I want to, it sounds more freeing than the way I'm living right now.
Well,
But
and acknowledging
easier
that's
said than done.
acknowledging that is the first step though, even acknowledging that gentleness can be a good thing. Like, we're raised with all these toxic messages, just push through, be a warrior, fight against it, as opposed to, I think I don't really talk about self-compassion like as a true practice as much as I should, because that's me being hard on myself. But I really want to draw attention to Dr. Kristen Neff's work, because that is, and that along with acceptance and commitment therapy, which I talk about like every 5 seconds on this podcast, has self-compassion work by Dr. Kristen Neff has really helped me give permission or just validated to me the importance of being gentle, with myself, and being raised by, Mr. Rogers. No, but that's what I watched a lot when I was a kid, I am special. You're special. That was in this 1980s generation of like, you're special. Everyone gets a trophy. I'm like, some of that's good. Sometimes it's like, yeah. Like, I mean, I'm an athlete. So I'm also like, yeah, no, like you want to like first place means something. Second place means something on the other hand, but also like participating means something. Participating trophies are great because it means you fucking got out there and you tried. And that's amazing. And and so anyway, sorry, side note, but Kristen, for anyone listening who struggles with self-compassion, she literally defines self-compassion is, I'm on her website right now. Sorry. With, me from the groups, I'm like, always have the tabs open. With self-compassion, we give ourselves the same kindness and care we would give to a good friend. And I find it way easier to be gentle and compassionate to others than myself too. That's why I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what you were saying, because that's totally, and that's actually why the power of groups, right? The group dynamics are such that I think most people, unless they're maybe, I don't know, a lot of people have an easier time. I'm not even going to speculate. A lot of people with chronic illnesses in the online communities, that I've been part of, find it easier. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I can point out that you're being too hard on yourself. And then you can point out that I'm being too hard on myself. And then, the other week, oh my God, I was on the phone back and forth with Walgreens. I was like, when am I going to learn? Like, not give myself any credit for the many times that I did manage my medications, quote unquote, correctly and on time. Yeah. I messed up. I didn't get the refill. I ignored all the reminders about the refill. And then my doctor moved and then I had to, blah, blah. I knew I should have known. It's like the Taylor Swift and Dear John. I should have known, like should have known. Okay. Well, yeah, you should have known. But like, am I going to go to my grave, berating myself the rest of my life? I don't think, I hope not. But anyway, sorry. But, what was the thing I was going to ask? Oh, you've mentioned your professional life a couple of times, just because I'm thinking people might be curious. What kind of work do you do, if you don't mind sharing?
No, it's fine. I don't even know. Do you know this? I am a children's pastor.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is why I would say, I don't know if I had known that, because my memory is very porous.
No, I doubt you did, is what I'm saying, is I don't know that I've ever shared it. So yeah.
That's amazing. That is I mean, so I'm sure you have all the compassion in the world for the children. It's like, treat yourself like the child, right? That's
yeah. You know what? Like I work with children, but I actually work mostly with adults. I am passionate about people who walking people through crises. So usually, like, I spend a lot of time in children's hospitals with families, and also am contracted into a grief center for children and families who have experienced the death of a loved one. And so passionate about helping to hold space for people in the middle of their hardest moments, which is one of the reasons why I got into the line of work that I did. But it's a lot of adults too. You know what I mean? It's kids, but it's a lot of adults, but embracing some of those big feelings is something that I teach, like, so right. to do it, personally is like, it's why it's always in the forefront of my mind, because it's like a personal conviction in a way, of like, I want to, model that as well, but it is hard. And and it's part of why it's clunky. You know what I mean? Is that like, in order to continue to showing up for people, you know what I mean? That means that I'm not going to go hide in a closet until this is all, like in a better spot and come out. It's like, no, I'm going to show up today, and you might be getting a really bizarre version of myself today. And I wish you didn't have to see it, but this is where I'm at today. And I'm still learning to be okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, people are gracious with me. I'm still learning to be okay with that. Because 2.5 years ago, it was different,
Oh man, comparing your current self to your older previous self is a very dangerous comparison game to make. But I think I don't know if this is the case, and you've never said anything like this, but I know people who've worked in like what we call like high acuity settings, high emotional acuity settings, like the emergency room, or in your case, children and adults in grief. A lot of times if they get diagnosed with a chronic illness, they will say, well, why am I this upset? It's not like blank. It's not like my mom died. It's not like someone died. I don't know if you've ever played that comparison Olympics, but just for anyone listening. Okay. So you're saying no, for those of you listening, that's good. And so I just want to acknowledge that I really, really encourage people not to play the suffering Olympics.
I actually will spin that around and say, what I actually hear more is when people know, and I don't share, I'm careful about where I share and what I share pain-wise with in my professional life, but because of what I do, but it's actually more common that people go, I don't want to share this because it's not like I'm suffering every day. It's like, whoa. Like, that to me is like, let's stop that immediately, because there's no, like, comparing in general is just ugly. Like, let's just stop, you know what I mean? Like, so like, even if we both have the exact same lineup of diagnoses, like, I'm not gonna, like, I can say that I understand daily suffering, but I'm not going to try to pretend that I know what your body feels like, that's right. So I would encourage anybody listening to have the same mindset of like, no, like, it's not well, it could be worse. Like, stop it. Like, that never helps anyone feel better in my experience. I've never had anyone go, that's good point. Like, no, like, it's not helpful. It's it might feel true, but it's not helpful. Like, so let what you're going through, validate like that is a lot. And any amount of pain or suffering, no matter what kind it is too much. It's too much. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter if the person to the left or right of you seems to be going through something harder or easier than you. It doesn't really matter.
No,
like,
it doesn't.
I
know that took me a long time, because that was the reason I've spoken about this, but probably not for a while, that I didn't go to therapy for a long time, because I was like, well, other people have it worse. Like, and it's true to acknowledge that I would say emotional privilege, if that even makes sense, but it kind of does, right? With what we know about how trauma affects the developing brain. I had a very, very happy childhood, no trauma to speak of, safe, 100% sure of my safety at all times, except for the 7th grade unit on earthquakes, which was like the big earthquake is coming to Seattle soon. And I would hyper fixated on that. And my therapist like, that might have been an early sign of your anxiety disorder. But anyway, normally in my everyday childhood, especially like, the birth to 5 really important years, I had really, really solid attachment, solid relationships. And I just thought, well, I just have this one thing wrong in my life, which is my health, but like everything else is good. So like, why should I go to therapy? Other people have it so much worse. And it's like, that's the worst way of thinking. Right. And on the one hand, it's like, I will be the first to admit, when my therapist, the first one, Amber, who I went to for a number of years after Charlie was born, that's when I finally did it, when Charlie was born. Because there's so much awareness about postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, that I was like, okay, well, it wasn't bad enough that I had RA. But it's bad enough because now that I'm feeling postpartum like weirdness, I didn't really like to call it depression because it didn't feel like what my conception of depression was at the time, which was like sadness. I wasn't sad. I was just irritable and angry and anxious all the time. So anyway, I went to therapy, and when she validated how much I had gone through with my health, on the one hand, I needed that external validation on the other hand, I through time have learned that I don't need it anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? You need it initially to get you over that hump that, okay, like the first time she was like, that's a lot. I was like, oh my God, this trained third party person said that's a lot. That was like pivoting point in my life where I was like, finally let myself believe it was a lot, Yeah. Forget what the original point of this was, but oh yeah, that a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, it's not like X happened. It's not like Y.
Yeah.
Yeah. It always could be worse. It always could be worse. You're alive. It always could be worse. You could be being tortured right now, but that doesn't mean that you're supposed to be happy every second.
I just don't believe that helps literally anyone in this scenario. It doesn't help the person. It doesn't help the person who experienced whatever you're saying would be worse. And it doesn't help you. Like I've not had experience where someone is like finding anything but guilt that then they were feeling upset in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, no. Like, it's not helpful. Like, I'm not trying to say it's bad. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but it's just like, in my experience, that does not help. It doesn't help the person who's suffering differently feel like, thanks for acknowledging that. And that made me feel better. I mean, I don't want you to, you know what I mean? Like, it's like suffering is hard and deserves space to be heard, and held by others, like no matter what it is, and no matter how much it is, and no matter whether the person to your left or right is seemingly holding more or less than you, like it deserves to be spoken.
I really like that, something that John Green wrote, which is pain deserves to be felt. Have you ever heard that? Pain demands to be felt. Yeah. Sorry, not deserves. So I was like, so the D word. And yeah, that's what it is. I want to ask you one more question before we go to the rapid fire. Just trying to be mindful. I found out that my son's last day of school today. I knew it was a half day, but normally half days end a little later. It's like a super half day. It's a 2-hour day. So I'm like, okay, but no, you've graciously let me know that you had a little extra time, but like, I am curious, overall, I think coping with chronic pain, whether it's a chronic disease that's like a active inflammation disease like RA, or whether it's from complex regional pain or RSD, is just, it's a lot to cope with. Like, are there any other tools that have helped, or strategies or frameworks that have helped you, that we haven't talked about so far? I'm literally just curious.
With coping.
Just with the coping, with the emotion. Like, I don't know. When I've had more severe pain, I get claustrophobic or claustrophobic. Like, I feel trapped in my body, and that's such an uncomfortable. I don't know if there's anything like that. I had done like breathing exercises, just as an example. Like, is there something that we didn't talk about? I just opened a huge can of worms at the very end.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Big into therapy. So therapy is big for me. I learned different breathing strategies that I thought were bogus when I was taught them, and now rely on them daily.
Okay.
I also felt the same way about any sort of meditation, thought it was bogus. Now big fan, use that regularly. I think that in the beginning I was so like nothing will work, and it's like just like give it a second, like give it a chance to just like help calm myself down. I am learning right now when to distract and when to pay attention. Like that's still brand new for me. But when distractions are needed, a lot of times that's music or TV or books. But sometimes I don't need, like, sometimes I don't want a distraction, sometimes I just want to just feel calmer. So different types of music sometimes. And my faith is a big part of my, life. So that's something that would be coping for me as well. And then I think that like just the social of like knowing that sometimes I need to just talk to somebody who understands chronic pain. So like I have one RSD friend who I'm really grateful for. And, anytime I need to just vent, to someone who is going to get it, it's there, or the Room to Thrive graduate group would be the same for the RA, of just like, okay, like knowing that sometimes like I just need someone to hear it, to hold it, and to be like, yeah, like that sucks.
Valid. Yeah, that
sucks. And like that's it, and that's okay. And again, I know it's rare, and so I never want to take it for granted, but I am very grateful for my medical team. I have really a lot of support from them. So
no, I think that's so hopeful for people to hear, because we do, unfortunately, or fortunately, there's just a lot of people that don't feel adequately heard or supported by their medical team. So it's really important to give voice to the positive stories like yours.
Yes, it did not start there. It took a while to get there. I say the same thing about counseling, like just don't give up on assuming that it can't get better. Like, no, like there's a better fit for you. You know what I mean? Like, and what's a good fit for someone's not going to be a good fit for everyone, And so I'm really grateful that I didn't settle, and that I'm with the people that I'm with now. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I hope everyone takes up those words to heart, because it can be, there is an inertia that I feel when getting a second opinion. I'm just like you're talking about earlier, I don't want to add one more person. I don't want to have to explain everything again. It was so funny. I just went to a cardiologist for the first time a couple weeks ago, and sorry, then I'm going to go to the rapid fire questions. He was fine, but it was like the first that he came in the room was like, so what brings you here today? And like, I was for some reason I was taken aback by that. Or he said, the way he asked it was very broad, like what's bothering you or something like that. And I was like, I didn't want to be rude, but I was like, well, I've literally like filled out all this extensive paperwork and like literally just told the medical assistant, like, right. So I'm like, I want to make the best use of my time and his time. So I just kind of said like, what have you read about me? Or do you know, like, I tried to say it in a nice way. Like, I don't want to put pressure on him to be like, did you just like walk in here without looking at my chart? Even though I kind of suspected that he probably did, because most specialists don't have embedded time in their schedules to look at people's charts and everything. And he, to his credit, he just, without missing a beat, he's like, I haven't looked at anything. He was like, yeah, I just start from the beginning. And so I'm like, okay, I have rheumatoid arthritis. And I was like, but it's fine. I mean, it is what it is. But the point being, oh my God, what is the point? Sorry, my brain is going in so many directions. The point of, I don't know what the point was.
I think that like too, like, I've had doctors be like, how's your pain? What pain? Which pain?
Where?
Like,
how long? What kind?
What do you be more specific? And it's like, they don't care about that. Like, they just care about that. And like,
they must want to put it like, I need to fill out my chart. Yeah, that's No, I'm not bashing that doctor at all. Again, I think I was actually relieved that he was honest and just said like,
Yes.
And I actually heard him. He was interviewing someone for a job. I could hear him in the room before when the medical assistant. So I could kind of guesstimated that he hadn't read anything.
Had time.
And he was great. He listened really well and got me on a plan. So, but for some reason I felt compelled to share that. Okay. But I just wrote supportive medical team in my notes and then decided to share that story. Okay. So for the rapid fire questions, which each one we could talk about for hours, but, do you have any just you've already shared so many words of wisdom, but particularly for newly diagnosed patients, what would you say to them?
I would say that, first of all, I am so sorry. And I would say that it is too much to hold this all by yourself. And so, whoever your safe people are, or finding a safe community, and trying, don't try to do this as an island. And to steal, which I just am a big Kate Bowler fan, and Kate Bowler said, and I don't know if she originated this or not, but her big thing is like, you are not the bad thing. And I love that so much. You are not the bad thing. This is a bad thing. You are not it. And I think sometimes when it feels closely attached to you, it feels very confusing to not try to think maybe I am the bad thing, because look at what this is doing to the people I love and to me, but it's not you. You're not the bad thing.
I love that. I just finished her book, which I forgot the title of, which I will put in the chat. No Cure for Being Human. No Cure for Being Human. It was so good. She's a treasure, and she does a lot of those. She has a lot of real like truth bombs, but like still hope. Do you have, this is totally on a different topic. Do you have a favorite arthritis gadget?
Okay, so this is not specific arthritis, but it has helped my arthritis. One is those slip-on sneakers, the Kizik's. Love them. Game changer for me. Love them. Also, hand massagers, things like big thing for me. And this is really random because this is not even a tool, but this is a strategy. Is washing my hair is really, really hard for me. So I get my hair blown out once a week, and it has been such a good life choice for me. It was an investment, but it has saved me so much energy. And I do emails while someone else washes and dries my hair. It's like my best life hack.
That is amazing. I've never thought of that. And doing your hair can be very painful.
Yes. Oh. And so I plan it around like my busiest work day or meetings or whatever, and I get my hair blown out, and I literally spend that whole time working at the same time. So it's my best life hack.
Oh my God. Okay. We need to share a video on this. This is amazing. Do you have a favorite book, movie, or show you've been loving recently?
I love Abbott Elementary, and that's been like, I just keep rewatching the same 3 seasons.
When we went to Disneyland and Universal Studios in February, I got to see the actual set.
Oh, fun.
It was so cool. Fun. Yeah. They weren't filming at the time. Do you have a favorite mantra or inspirational saying?
You've heard me say multiple times, doing my best. I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Borrowing Kate Bowler's, you are not the bad thing.
Yeah.
And then also trying to say and instead of but when I'm making comments about how I'm feeling, and I recognizing how much I usually am like, this is hard, but it's like, no, this is hard. And I'm grateful for whatever the situation might be, but trying to say and more and holding both at the same time.
That, you know what, literally I have to say this, that do you listen to Dear Hank and John, the podcast with John Green and Hank Green?
No.
So Hank, they're 2 brothers.
Okay.
And I was about to go into their spiel before the podcast, but they are both writers, and they were the vlog brothers. So they have like millions of followers on YouTube. And so they're one of the first like YouTubers, and they're both the nicest, most grounded people. They're I think about in their 40s. And Hank just got diagnosed with lymphoma. And so, and they were talking about it on the podcast. And John was saying the exact thing you were just saying about like, he keeps wanting to be, or Hank was saying the same thing. Like, keep wanting to be like, well, but I have cancer, but it's one of the most treatable cancers. But, and they had acknowledged that. And they were like, I'm trying to not do that. And then like later on the podcast, John started a sentence and he's like, I really want to say, but like, it's so hard. Not to
I've had to like, my friends now know, like I will pause after the hard sentence thing and let it sit there. And then I'll say, and this, whatever, like, like, and to try to not gloss over it. It's like a discipline practice for me now. So.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah. And what is something that's bringing you joy right now other than Abbott Elementary?
Oh my gosh. No, always. Answer is always these days. My nieces and nephew. I am obsessed with those little people in my life. They are the best little joy bringers.
Being an aunt is the best job.
The best.
It's the best. I got to, and my nieces that live in New York are about to come next week. I can't wait to spoil them. Yes, my other niece and nephew who live in DC are coming in August. So yeah, I love it. And last one, what does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with rheumatic disease / migraine / RSD? I'm adding that for you.
Using that and as like a life grounded thing, like this is hard and I want to laugh and I want to make memories that I can look back and say, yep, I was in pain and I showed up, I lived, I was there, and so like embracing that and not putting life on hold with the illusion of when I'm in a better spot, then I'll go live, but this is really hard. This is a hard season and I want to show up to it and experience life.
I'm having a moment of like where, that famous, it depends on what the meaning of is. Dude, I don't know if you're old enough to know that reference, but it's from a famous trial in the 90s of a president. But I'm like, it depends on what the meaning of and is. Like in this sense, it's true. Like when you say the importance of and, it's so deep. Like it's not just the word and, it's like the mental framework of resisting the urge to put a spin on it, to say, this is hard, but I'll figure it out soon or something, but to say this is hard and I'm facing it. And with this, it's like you have this big, like some people refer to like having chronic illnesses, like a big, like a backpack with like a bowling ball in it or something you're carrying. You're not saying, and I'm going to take the backpack off soon and they're going to figure out how to cut this, straps off. It's like, no, this is hard and I will carry this,
My childhood best friend like freed me the other day because we were talking about a situation with another friend who's not really accepting where my health is at the moment. And I was sharing that, like, I think they probably just didn't understand, like, because they saw me in this really great light, they saw me doing this and they probably thought, oh, if she can do this, she can do that. And my friend said, if that's true, that's super upsetting. She said, because we're people who knew you before pain ever entered into your life. And she said, when I look at you, even when it seems like you're having your best day, I can see that you're in pain. And I like wept because like, I see it in my photos. I see it. But like the fact that this childhood best friend who knew me before, like goes, I see it all the time. Like you could be doing a better day, have a better day. And I see it like, and they should have been able to see it too. But in that, it's like, okay, like that freed me. And it also was like, great, then I'm going to keep getting my photo taken in these memories and in these moments. And I'm going to still be able to see that I'm in pain. And I'm going to remember that I was in pain. And I want to be in the photo, like, because I want to be at the memory moment. I want to not miss things because of the pain. And sometimes I do. I'm currently missing a vacation right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's things that, but what I'm saying is that it's like, I don't want to not show up. You know what I mean? Like I want that, that's what I mean by that. And you know what I mean? Like I want to live, even if it's like, okay, some days it's really like we're dragging to get there. I just still want to show up. So.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Showing up in a clunky way is showing up as a perfectly imperfect.
At least in this season, that's where we are. So
and I'm the same. I want to, there's this saying by Glennon Doyle Melton, like write from your scars, not your wounds, like saying like, in that sense, she was saying, wait until you've kind of processed the pain to write about it. But it's like, well, if your shitty situation is like ongoing, you have to write from your wound. Like you have to just say like, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on right now. It's not a neat and tidy little package and it's messy. Again, as Taylor Swift said, it's messy and it's magical. That's one of those 22. We're happy, free, confused, and lonely at the same time.
Yep.
I relate, dude. You're talking about being 22. I'm 41. I'm almost 42. That's still feeling that way. And it's miserable and magical. Oh yeah. Sorry, you guys are going to be sick of hearing about Taylor Swift because the concert's in exactly 4 weeks for me, and I am ramping up the excitement.
It's a big deal. Gotta prep. So
yeah, my husband's being coached a lot. And I'm also coaching myself, like something could happen. You could get really sick and you could not miss it. Anyway, so that's me, but I'm going to put your links in the show notes for your Facebook. And so people can follow you. Is anything else you want to say, or are we ready to conclude? That was my little
I'm
alarm that went off. Okay. Yeah.
Really grateful that you should go get Charlie.
I do have to get my son.
No, I'm grateful to have been able to share. Thanks for having me.
No, and thank you. And I had forgotten that that's how you learned about this work that I'm doing through the podcast. So I love that it's like a full circle moment. Yeah. And, thank you for showing up when I know it's hard to show up when you want to have a quote unquote, like a tidier story. But this is reality and this is what people need, these are the stories people need to hear. So thank you again.
Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay. Bye-bye for now.